Hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Confessions of a Male Gynecologist. I am your host, America's Holistic Gynecologist, Dr. Shawn Tassone. And today I want to wade into an area that I haven't really ever been into publicly before because it's so freaking charged emotionally. This whole concept of sex and gender. And as an OBGYN, obviously, we deal with gender and we deal with sex. I used to think that these were basic biological constructs, but there are a lot of people out there that are maybe wondering, how does it matter? He, she, they, them, zoo, whatever it is, the pronouns and all that. So basically, I want to kind of break these things down. And first of all, I think it would be interesting to look at the differences between sex and gender as definitions. And then I want to go through about 70 words and what they mean so that you can be educated, basically like I've been educated. And this is not choosing a side. This is me just using definitions and trying to be clearer about things, whether or not you want to call somebody by the pronouns they want, or you feel put upon by the fact that you need to do that, or I don't really care one way or the other. What I care about is just the science. And then on the other side, how can I respect the other person if they're respecting me? So sex basically comes down to a biological construct based on anatomy, physiology, genetics, and hormones. So sex is going to come down to basically, are you male or female? And woman or man, I guess, would be the definition. And you base that on anatomy, physiology, genetics, and hormones. So XY chromosomes combined with anatomical traits and physiology. And there's this argument right now as I record this about the female boxer from Taiwan or the male boxer, if you're talking about sex, from Taiwan, and then this other Algerian boxer, and whether or not they were born male or female. And that's easy enough to discern because you can look at the birth certificate and the chromosomes. Now, are there humans that are born with genitalia that cannot be distinguished? Yes. There is even something called testicular feminization where these are XY males who basically don't have receptors in their body to testosterone. So their testes never really descend. They are still inside the pelvis. And anatomically, these individuals look like women. And in many cases, very attractive females. They have great muscle density and they're attractive. They look like women, but they have the XY chromosome. So they don't develop the secondary characteristics of being a woman, such as a uterus and things like that. So there are these gray zones, and I don't think it's as simple as man or woman, although those cases are extremely rare. So sex is anatomy, physiology, genetics, hormones. Gender is identity, roles and norms, relations, power, things like that. So gender is basically only a relevant term that we would use in research. Gender is broadly defined as a multi-dimensional construct that encompasses your gender identity and expression, as well as social and cultural expectations about status, characteristics, and behavior, as they are all associated with sexual traits. Now, this definition, which was put out there by the National Academies of Sciences in 2022, show a difference between the anatomical, chromosomal, physiologic sex versus gender. So sex is something you cannot change. Even if you change somebody's genitalia, if you remove a penis, if you make a penis, that doesn't change the sex. It changes their gender, but it may not change their sex, because they technically still have the genetics of the other sex. Now, they also, maybe the anatomy looks different. The physiology would be the same. The genetics would be the same, but the hormones could also be manipulated. So even that makes it a little bit cloudy. But suffice it to say, if we were going to just try to keep this basic, that sex is that physical, that physicality, that what you were born with, that chromosomal issue, whereas gender is the more fluid, more undefined, more individualized interpretation of what you are as a person. Now, what I really wanted to do was get into these different terms and just kind of define them, because I don't know, maybe we all need to be on the same page. There are some acronyms that people use, such as AFAB, which is assigned female at birth, and then AMAB, which is assigned male at birth. So if you ever see those AMABs, AFABs, that's what that is. Agender is someone who doesn't identify with the idea or experience of having a gender. So these people basically don't feel like they fit into any gender. Androgine, an androgine, is someone who has a gender presentation or identity that's gender neutral or androgynous, or has both masculine and feminine characteristics. So you could even say that the boxer that we were talking about earlier has that kind of androgine appearance, because there are characteristics of her appearance that are masculine and feminine. So, and I'm using the pronoun of her just because it's just what's popping into my head. Now, you may get upset with me and say it's a he, but I'm not, like I said, I'm not into splicing this. I'm not getting into that debate. I'm just doing what comes naturally to me. Bigender person indicates the number of gender identities. So they could identify with having male 50 and female 50, or something along those lines. There's boy, which is BOI, which is a term primarily used by the LGBTQIA plus community. That basically, BOI, boy, describes someone who has a presentation, sexuality or gender that's boyish. Then there's butch, primarily used in the same LGBTQ communities. Describes someone with a presentation, sexuality, or gender that is considered more masculine. Butch doesn't necessarily indicate the other terms that someone might use to describe their presentation, sexuality, or gender. Now, here's a term that you hear a lot: cisgender. This is basically meaning that you feel the same gender that you were assigned at birth. I was called a man. I'm still a man. I am told that I am a man all the time by people on the internet that don't think I should have an opinion because I'm a man. So I am a cisgendered male. Cisnormativity. So cis means same. Cis means similar. Trans means opposite. So that's Latin based. So cis means same, trans means opposite. Cisnormativity is the assumption that the person identifies with the gender they were assigned at birth. So basically, I would be cisgendered. I'd be a cisgendered male, and I would be cisnormative. Demigender. What is a demigender? Demi kind of means half, or partial, or a piece of. So basically, you could be demi-girl, demi-boy, demi-trans, and it basically means that you have a partial identification or connection to a particular gender. So if you're demi-gendered, demi whatever, that just means, like if you're a demi, say I mentioned demi-girl, it means your identity describes you as partially identifying with being a girl, woman, or feminine. It doesn't convey any information about their sex or gender. It just tells you how they feel. So a demi-girl could be cisgendered, meaning she's demigirl, but she's also identifying as a woman, or trans, meaning identifying as a man. There are a lot of interesting terms. There's feminine of center, which I've just heard recently. What that means is that you basically experience your gender as just a feminine energy. Now, it seems to me like a lot of these words are kind of rehashing some of the bigger terms. And I don't know if that's because we've now gotten to the point where we have to define this as a spectrum, like with autism. Used to be that, when I was a kid, I don't really think there was a lot of autism diagnosed, but now we have this entire thing we call a spectrum for autism. So it seems to me like maybe this gender thing has now gone into this kind of, how would we say, this spectrum, and everybody wants to have a definition. So obviously, there are people out there that identify born male, born women, but then they identify as something else. Okay, I get that. The word gender dysphoria that you hear thrown around a lot, usually nowadays, the word gender dysphoria is thrown at individuals who are trans or otherwise different, because it's used as in some cases, it's used as an attack, saying that, oh, you have a mental disease, you're gender dysphoric, because this is a medical diagnosis. Gender dysphoria is both a medical diagnosis and an informal term used to communicate feelings or distress people experience in relation to their gender. The medical diagnosis of gender dysphoria refers to the conflict between someone's assigned sex, say as a male or female or intersex, and then their identity. So they may be born a woman, but they feel like they're a man, and so they have this dysphoria, this bad feeling. It doesn't connect. And I think we throw that around at people, basically trying to say that they have a mental disorder or they have some medical disease, and that it's not normative, I guess. And so unfortunately, this medical term has been used as an attack, because gender dysphoria is a real thing, has been diagnosed for years. I think the criticism of gender dysphoria is that these people are normal and we don't need to be fixing them, which is, again, your definition of all that. But I think that we have come to use this term as a negative when it really is just a definition. Gender neutral pronouns, there's a bunch of these now. Gender neutral pronouns are used by both cisgenders, transgenders, as a way to affirm or convey important information to that person. So you can use things like he and she, they and them, Z, which is ZE, Zir and Zirs, XE, XEM, XYRS. I mean, I don't understand all that, but hey, I mean, when it comes to the end of the day, in my opinion, what I really want as a human is for other people to be happy. And I think if this is what makes them feel full or whole or together, and it helps them become a person that contributes to society and is happy and can get things done and they can live their lives and they're contributing, great. I don't necessarily feel like I have to be put upon to do or say things that I don't want to say. I personally take care of some transgendered people, and I'm more than happy to do that. I don't put any judgment out there for them. I just want them to be happy, and I want them to do the hormonal transition, at least in a safe and effective manner that's going to get them the results that they want. Now, I will say I had a patient, younger girl, who came in initially for birth control and whatnot, polycystic ovarian syndrome. And then the following year came in and was identifying as a male, changed his name, her name, to a male name. And then the following year was now a they, them, So it went kind of from the female to the male to this they. And then the following year, because I've seen this person many, many years, went back to being a her, she. So you can see this also being confusing, but for this individual, it gave her, him, they a chance to express themselves in a way that maybe helped them get through some tough times. I don't know. A gender questioning individual is a person who is questioning their gender, their identity, their expression. Gender fluid is an individual that basically moves back and forth like water. It involves moving between genders or having a gender that changes over a particular time period, meaning this individual I just described would be called gender fluid because he, she, they was going back and forth. Genderqueer. Genderqueer is a non-binary gender, someone with a gender that can't be categorized exclusively as man or woman or feminine or masculine. These genderqueer individuals experience and express gender in different ways, basically not being ascribed to male or female. Intergender or intersex. Intersex is an umbrella term that describes people who have sex characteristics such as chromosomes, internal organs, hormones, or anatomy that cannot be easily categorized into a binary framework of male or female. Basically, these are the individuals, like I talked about before, who may be hard for the doctors and nurses to define at birth because the characteristics of their sex, meaning it could be a super small penis, it could be a large clitoris, maybe the vulva or the testes aren't, or scrotum isn't developed as much as it could be, or maybe we have an enzymatic issue going on where we just can't tell the gender. That's intersex. Misgender is the act of referring to somebody using a gender pronoun or gender language that's incorrect. And I kind of believe that if you know and you choose not to react to this person. So if this is I was at a Starbucks months ago, and the individual taking my order was obviously assigned male at birth, kind of a person, had a beard, was wearing what I would consider a woman's top, shirt, and a skirt. So I obviously knew that there was something there. But and the name tag I did not look at. I'll openly admit that I didn't look at the name tag. And when I was rung up, because I just ordered, I don't care. I'm just doing my business here. And when I got the coffee, this individual turned around, gave me my coffee, and I said, "Hey, thanks, man. Have a good day." This individual got upset and said, "I'm not a man." And I looked at the name tag and I think it said Donna or something like that. And I said, "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't look at your name tag." And she just looked at me like I was an idiot. But I mean, really, in my defense, I think what I was saying was, "Hey, bro," or "bruh," because I call everybody that nowadays. I didn't mean it as a misgender, but that's how this individual took it. Now, you could have the argument that, well, you didn't do this and you didn't do that. Look, there is so much going on in this world today. I just, I think we all are trying to keep our head above water with the current events and all of the hate and issues that are going on right now. And I do never mean to misgender somebody, at least not in a covert, or a otherwise transparent manner. If I do make that mistake, I make it because I'm just going off of what I see. And you might be different. You might decide, no, I'm not calling them a woman because they're not going to change the way that I view the world. So we have pangender. Pan, as you hear with the word pandemic, usually means all or all-encompassing kind of a thing. So when you have a pandemic, that means that it's worldwide kind of a thing because it's pan is the total. So pangender is a non-binary gender identity that describes people who experience all or many gender identities simultaneously. So they just feel like they're all genders at the same time. The classification of sex is the classification as a person or male or female or intersex. So this is what we were talking about earlier, the anatomical, physiological, chromosomal. That is your sex assigned at birth. Just a couple of other words to throw in there. Talked about butch earlier. There is a term called a soft butch, which is both a gender identity and term used to describe the non-conforming gender expression of someone who has some masculine or butch traits, but doesn't fully fit the stereotypes associated with masculine. There is transgender, which is obviously, we hear this daily now. It's an umbrella term that includes many gender identities and a specific gender identity that describes those who feel different or opposite of what they were given at birth. So like I said, cis means the same. So if you're cisgendered, that means you identify with the definition you were given at birth. So I was born a male. I identify as a male. I am cisgendered. If I was born as a male, but I identified as a female, then I would be transgendered because I identify with the opposite sex. A transitioning person, that basically means they're in the act of making not just the physical, which is usually the last piece, but they're also making the social, interpersonal, personal, and then the medical and surgical changes. So they're making all these things. And usually I have seen this on the male to female side where we are giving men estrogen, but it goes the other way where you can give women higher doses of testosterone so that they can start to feel the effects of that. Now, I have seen that be very, very difficult for some folks because if you think about it, it does go against the grain of your body's physiology. You may identify as a different sex. However, your body, your cells, your receptors are set for that sex that you were given at birth because that's the chromosomes of it. And when you start hitting men with high doses of estrogen and women with high doses of testosterone, you can have some issues. So I basically just wanted to go into this, not so much to basically talk about things that are difficult, although I do think that we need to have those discussions. I think that we need to look at other people with respect. I think they need to respect us. I think if we had that going both directions, even if you don't understand something, you don't have to be critical of it unless it is imposing upon your rights. I think if you feel imposed upon, then do what you feel is right. However, do it respectfully and do it in a way that you would want to be treated. Again, difficult discussion, but I think we're all capable of having difficult discussions. Remember, I'm here to help. I'm here to look at hormones. You can buy my book, The Hormone Balance Bible, on Amazon. You can watch all the episodes here. You can follow me on YouTube or Instagram at Shawn Tassone MD. Hope y'all have a great day.